He was healthy, then he died from a heart attack. Why even healthy people are still at risk. He looked perfectly healthy, trained harder than most people half his age, finished marathons, exercised every week, and still suffered a heart attack in the middle of a race. The terrifying part? He almost ignored it because the symptoms didn't feel like a heart attack at all. And what doctors discovered inside his heart shocked everyone. Before we begin, I want to ask you something important. If your body was quietly warning you that something dangerous was happening inside your heart, would you recognize the signs? Or would you brush them off like millions of people do every single day? If you care about staying healthy, independent, and protecting your body after 50, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Every week, we break down real medical stories and the science of healthy aging in ways that are simple, honest, and genuinely useful. And before we go further, tell me in the comments, have you, or someone you love, ever experienced a heart scare, irregular heartbeat, chest discomfort, blocked artery, or heart attack? Your story could help another person recognize symptoms before it becomes too late. Now let me tell you about something that completely shattered one of the biggest lies people still believe about heart disease. Because most people think heart attacks only happen to unhealthy people. People who don't exercise. People who sit all day. People who eat badly. People who are visibly overweight. But what if I told you some of the most dangerous heart problems happen quietly inside people who seem incredibly healthy? People who run races, lift weights, stay active, look fit, feel normal. People who never imagined something serious could be happening inside their bodies. That's exactly what happened here. This man was disciplined, healthy-looking, motivated, strong. The kind of person many people would point to and say, "Wow, he's in incredible shape." He had been training for months. Only weeks earlier, he had completed an entire marathon. Not a short jog, not a casual weekend walk, a marathon. And he made it through without major problems. No dramatic symptoms, no warning sirens, nothing that made him think his heart might be in danger. Which is exactly why what happened next became so terrifying. He signed up for an intense obstacle race, one designed to push the body physically and mentally. Running, climbing, carrying heavy loads, crawling through mud, endurance, strength, pain, fatigue. The kind of race where discomfort is normal. First, everything felt fine. Difficult? Of course. Tiring? Absolutely. But expected. Then something changed. His heart began beating faster than usual. Not ordinary race fatigue. Something felt strange. Wrong. He noticed shortness of breath that didn't feel normal. His breathing became harder. His heart rhythm felt off. But like many active adults do, he tried to explain it away. Maybe I'm dehydrated. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe it's lack of sleep. Maybe I had too much caffeine. Be honest for a moment. How many times have you done exactly that? How many times have you brushed off symptoms because admitting something might be wrong feels frightening? Especially if you're someone who normally feels healthy. Especially if you're active. Especially if you pride yourself on being fine. Because nobody wants to believe their body might be failing them. But then something strange started happening. Every time he slowed down, he felt a little better. Yet every time he pushed himself again, the symptoms came rushing back. Worse than before. His breathing became harder. His heartbeat felt chaotic. Almost like his body was desperately trying to tell him something important. But there was one major reason he still didn't think heart attack. No crushing chest pain. No dramatic collapse. No movie-style moment clutching the chest while falling to the ground. And this right here may be one of the most important things every adult over 50 needs to hear. Heart attacks often don't look the way people expect them to look. Especially in adults over 50. Especially in women. Sometimes symptoms whisper instead of scream. Maybe it feels like unusual fatigue. Maybe sudden shortness of breath. Tightness in the chest. Pressure instead of pain. Dizziness. Sweating. Nausea. Jaw pain. Neck discomfort. Shoulder pain. Indigestion. Or sometimes something much harder to explain. A strange feeling deep inside that simply says, something isn't right. But because symptoms aren't dramatic, many people ignore them. They wait. They delay. They convince themselves it's stress, aging, exhaustion, poor sleep, or anxiety. They tell themselves, if it gets worse, I'll check tomorrow. But sometimes, tomorrow comes too late. Back at the race, things suddenly escalated. Fast. His symptoms became impossible to ignore. He grew dizzy. His vision narrowed. Tunnel vision. He started feeling weak, lightheaded, like he might collapse. Imagine that moment for a second. You came here to challenge yourself, maybe even prove something to yourself. And suddenly your own body feels unfamiliar. Your heart feels wrong. You're breathing harder than you should be. And deep down, something inside you says, this isn't normal. Finally, his body forced him to stop. He dropped to his knees. And thankfully, someone nearby noticed him struggling and stepped in to help. That moment may have saved his life. Because many people in that situation would have done something dangerous. Pushed through it. Tried to be tough. Tried to finish strong. And sometimes that decision becomes deadly. Medical staff rushed him to a medical station where paramedics immediately performed an EKG, a test that measures the heart's electrical activity. Within moments, the medical team saw something alarming. One paramedic looked at him and said words nobody ever wants to hear. You're coming with me. No debate. No hesitation. Straight to the ambulance. Why? Because his heart had suddenly entered atrial fibrillation, commonly called AFib. And if you're over 60, this next part matters deeply because millions of adults are living with AFib right now without even knowing it. Normally, your heart beats with rhythm and coordination. Like a perfectly conducted orchestra. Blood flows efficiently. Oxygen reaches the brain, muscles, and organs. But during AFib, the upper chambers of the heart begin beating chaotically. Irregularly. Fast. Out of sync. Instead of strong, coordinated pumping, the heart starts fluttering. Blood no longer moves efficiently. Some people feel pounding heartbeats. Others experience dizziness, weakness, shortness of breath, fatigue. Some feel chest discomfort. And some people feel almost nothing at all, which is exactly why AFib can be so dangerous. Because when blood isn't flowing properly inside the heart, it can begin pooling. And pooled blood forms clots. If one of those clots travels to the brain, it can trigger a stroke. In fact, AFib significantly increases stroke risk, especially after age 60. Inside the ambulance, doctors moved quickly. Medications were given to slow the heart. Then came cardioversion, an electrical shock used to reset the heart rhythm back to normal. Eventually, they stabilized him. And for a moment, everyone thought the worst might be over. But then came the moment that changed everything. Blood work showed elevated troponin levels. And doctors immediately became concerned. Troponin is one of the most important markers used to detect heart muscle injury. When the heart becomes damaged or stressed, troponin leaks into the bloodstream. Elevated numbers can point toward a heart attack. At first, doctors weren't completely sure what was happening. Because AFib alone can sometimes stress the heart enough to mildly elevate troponin. A racing heart working too hard for too long can absolutely strain heart muscle. But doctors kept monitoring him overnight. And what happened next made everyone nervous. Instead of falling, the troponin levels climbed higher. That changed the entire story. Suddenly, doctors worried this wasn't simply an irregular heartbeat problem. Something more dangerous was happening inside his heart. The next morning, they ordered an angiogram, a procedure allowing doctors to look directly inside the arteries feeding blood to the heart. A tiny catheter was threaded through an artery while dye illuminated blood flow. And then came the discovery that shocked everyone. One of the most important arteries supplying blood to his heart was partially blocked, around 50 to 60% narrowed. But not just any artery. The blockage sat inside the left anterior descending artery, known among cardiologists by one chilling nickname, the Widowmaker. And if that name sounds frightening, it's because it should. This artery supplies blood to a massive portion of the heart muscle. When severely blocked, it can become catastrophic, sometimes fatal within minutes. And here's where the story becomes truly unsettling. This man looked healthy. He exercised constantly. He trained hard. He had recently finished a marathon. So how could someone seemingly healthy have dangerous blockage inside one of the heart's most important arteries? The answer is something every adult over 50 needs to understand. Heart disease develops quietly, silently, slowly, over years, sometimes decades. Inside artery walls, cholesterol, inflammation, calcium, and fatty material gradually accumulate. That buildup creates plaque. Over time, plaque narrows blood vessels, reducing blood flow. Doctors call this process atherosclerosis. But here's the terrifying truth. Most people feel completely normal while it's happening. No pain, no warning, no obvious symptoms. In fact, many people don't notice anything until arteries become dangerously narrowed, sometimes more than 70% blocked. Let that sink in. You could feel completely healthy while dangerous plaque quietly grows inside your body for years. That's why heart disease is often called a silent killer. Because sometimes the very first symptom is the emergency itself. And if there's one message I want every healthy, active adult listening to hear today, it's this: exercise protects you, but it does not make you invincible. Walking matters. Exercise matters. Strength training matters. Staying active absolutely reduces risk. But fitness does not erase genetics. It does not magically cancel high cholesterol, blood pressure problems, diabetes risk, inflammation, poor sleep, chronic stress, or family history. Healthy-looking people still need screenings, blood pressure checks, cholesterol testing, blood sugar monitoring, regular physicals, because prevention works best before symptoms arrive. In this case, doctors realized something important. This wasn't the typical kind of heart attack most people imagine. Normally, heart attacks happen when plaque suddenly ruptures, creating a clot that blocks blood flow completely. But this case was different. His partially narrowed artery alone hadn't caused symptoms before. He had trained hard through it, exercised through it, even finished a marathon through it. But on this day, several things collided at once. Physical stress, travel fatigue, possible dehydration, poor sleep, higher caffeine intake. Then came AFib, throwing the heart into chaos. Suddenly, oxygen demand skyrocketed. Imagine trying to sprint uphill while breathing through a straw. Eventually, the body can't keep up. The heart muscle wasn't getting enough oxygen. That mismatch caused injury to the heart. Technically, yes, a heart attack. But hidden inside this frightening story is something hopeful too. Because the human body is extraordinary. When arteries slowly narrow, the heart sometimes develops tiny backup blood vessels called collateral circulation. Small detours helping blood still reach important tissue. And one of the best ways to help stimulate those protective pathways? Consistent movement. Walking, swimming, strength training, staying active. So please do not let this story scare you away from exercise. Let it motivate you to become proactive instead. Schedule the appointment. Know your numbers. Prioritize sleep. Reduce stress. Stay active. Eat in a way that supports heart health. Avoid smoking. And above all else, never ignore symptoms that feel unusual for you. Strange shortness of breath. Sudden fatigue. Dizziness. Jaw discomfort. Chest pressure. Sweating. Lightheadedness. Or simply that feeling that something isn't right. Your body is often whispering long before it screams. Listen carefully, because catching something early can mean the difference between a manageable condition and a life-changing emergency. And before you go, I want to ask you one honest question. Have you ever ignored symptoms and later realized something serious was happening? Or do you know someone who looked perfectly healthy but suddenly experienced heart problems? Tell me in the comments below. Your story may help someone else stop ignoring their own warning signs. And if today's story taught you something valuable, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and join our growing community focused on staying healthy, independent, and strong after 50. Because getting older is inevitable, but losing your health before your time doesn't have to be. Protect your heart. One day it may save your life.